You ever written a poem that could change the course of human history? Can you go and give us a line? It'll cost me. That is what a poet would say. Yeah. Weak, sad people, poets. Hungry. I think that I might be a better poet. Oh, here's something you need to know for this poem. Do you know who Sylvia Plath is? She was a poet who killed herself in an oven. And her husband, Ted Hughes, was also a poet, and then he married a different woman who also killed herself in an oven. Yeah, I mean, it is, with hindsight, it's pretty funny. I think that I might be a better poet than either Ted Hughes or Sylvia Plath. When I read their poetry, I get bored. But when I read my poetry, oh man, it's electric. I think I might even be better than Walt Whitman. And as far as I can tell, Walt Whitman was all right. All that Captain Oh My Captain stuff, it was really quite moving in Dead Poets Society. But if they'd used one of my poems instead, that would have been even better, I reckon. What if instead of saying, "Hey ho, Mr. Captain," what if the boys, standing up on their desks, had cried out in glorious union and said, "I think that I might be a better poet than either Ted Hughes or Sylvia Plath. When I read their poetry, I get bored. But when I read my poetry, oh man, it's electric." Wouldn't that have been a much better movie? And maybe that boy, that suicide boy, the boy who suicides to spite his mean daddy. What if instead of just studying Walt Whitman, what if the boy had studied me instead? He wouldn't have died, that's for sure. And that's one of the most difficult things about being such a fantastic poet. It's knowing you could have saved lives had you been born earlier. Just imagine if my poems had been around for Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes. They were both working so very hard to write great poems, but it didn't work. His weren't good enough for her to want to stay alive to keep reading them. And hers weren't good enough for her to want to stay alive to keep writing them. But imagine if they'd had my poems. Imagine what long and beautiful lives they would have had. Long and beautiful like a hot woman's legs. Ted Hughes actually didn't. Ted Hughes did have a long life, but I'll tell you who didn't. The second woman he shacked up with, who also killed herself in an oven. Man, that's some stuff right there. 2 women, 2 oven suicides.
Was it a gas oven?
Yeah, man. That's really the only way to get it done. Imagine coming back home and seeing woman number 2 lying in the oven, her potentially long and beautiful legs protruding from the oven. You'd be furious. You'd say, "Darling, that's not funny. You shouldn't make fun of my ex-wife killing herself in an oven." And then you'd probably say something like, "Wait a minute, she's dead. Oh no. I can't believe it has happened again. What are the chances?" I can only imagine how this is going to look to other people. Surely the common factor here is me. You couldn't make that up. 2 dead people in ovens shacking up with the same guy. You just couldn't. If you did make it up and put it into a movie script, the producer would say, "Mate, 2 oven suicides? That's too many oven suicides. Even 1 suicide in an oven. That's pretty confronting, but 2 of them. Get out of town." Anyway, this movie is meant to be about a teacher. A teacher who teaches kids about poetry at an elite boarding school. You tell me, what do 2 oven suicides have to do with that? And I know I'm just a producer, but here's an idea for your script. You know who should kill himself instead? The boy. The boy who wants to be an actor. In the current draft, he just becomes an actor. But wouldn't it be better if at the slightest hurdle to being an actor, he kills himself out of nowhere, proving that he didn't have the temperament to be an actor and that his father was right all along? Excuse Excuse me, what did you say? He should kill himself in an oven? No! What is it with you and oven suicides? Seize the day, my ass! Seize your depressed characters more like and pull them out of the fucking oven in which they are trying to commit suicide. Also, take James Donald Forbes McCann's poems out of the movie. They're too good, baby. They're distracting. Nobody will believe that anybody who has heard those poems could experience despair again. Use Walt Whitman instead, is what he'd say. I reckon. That's all right. I appreciate it.